Now, Nigeria's battle against the coronavirus has been given a boost with the official opening of the THISDAY COVID-19 Testing, Tracing and Treatment Center here in Abuja, or rather in Abuja. The center has been built within the THISDAY Dome in Nigeria's capital, and it's been set up at no cost to patients for the treatment of COVID-19. It's also been described as a landmark collaboration between the private and public sector. Arise News correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya was at the ceremony and has this report.
A new dawn for this day began with the handing over of its self-titled Dome Testing, Tracing and Treatment Center in Abuja.
We are ready, willing, able and available to work with the federal government, as all Nigerians are, to defeat this pandemic.
As an industry, we are delivering medical facilities, infrastructure in all states of the Federation, and particularly setting up permanent structures in at least 6 of the geopolitical zones, so that these facilities can actually outlive the COVID-19 period, so that it will be of use to the communities post-COVID-19.
The effort was also powered by energy conglomerate Sahara Group.
What started off as a little plant has now grown to be a forest. As you would see later, you would see the COVID mobile lab, the hotels, etc. So for us, we started with something small, but it's grown to be something much bigger. But we are overwhelmed and happy to be part of this.
So too was it supported by a group of entities including the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation and the Central Bank of Nigeria. And that's not all. An app for COVID-19 contact tracing was also launched. A stone's throw away, a 98-bed hotel has also been donated for medical staff to stay in for 6 months.
It has shown how great Nigerians are. We have all come together to fight the common enemy, COVID-19. And by the grace of God, it will come and pass.
This day also joined forces with 54Gene to create a mobile testing center. 200 tests can be done in a day, and that could soon be ramped up to 1,000 tests daily. 54Gene's leader says the time has come for more investment into scientific research in Nigeria.
For the first time in a very long time, everyone in this country knows the name of a disease and is speaking that disease at the same time. And everyone is talking about antibody-based tests, antigen-based tests, PCR-based tests, things that would have never been in the lingua of most people. You know, so I do think that this may, and I say may because it really depends on how it's executed, this may be the opportunity for Nigeria to stop paying lip service to molecular sciences and actually start executing and actually start investing in education, actually start investing in healthcare. We've seen how our hospitals are not well equipped, right? And so there is now a lot of attention in the healthcare sector and in the science sector, not just in Nigeria, globally. And I hope that that becomes one of the positives from COVID-19, because it made us as a country begin to build the infrastructure we need for the future.
Commitment demonstrated by the partners that developed this infrastructure is a call to other private sector entities to also get involved in the development of public interest facilities. The Presidential Task Force advocates strongly that lessons to be drawn from COVID-19 should therefore revolve around development, future planning, consensus building, collaboration, and partnerships.
Nigerian Health Minister Dr. Sagir has commended the donations, describing them as a landmark collaboration between the public and private sectors.
AEDC has always been to strive for the best and prepare for the worst. We are striving to have the best outcomes and also preparing for the worst. So this edifice you see right here is serving that purpose of being able to help us prepare for the very worst. And we are particularly grateful that it's an addition to the assets we have on ground.
For the closing of the last speech, the delegation, in groups of 5 people at a time, began a tour of THISDAY Dome so they could take a closer look at the facilities. The treatment centre is fitted with foundation wards and an intensive care unit complete with ventilators, X-ray and dialysis machines. Well, inside this THISDAY Dome, there are more than 270 beds available. Spread across 2 floors, there are also treatment and equipment rooms, all boosting the effort to administer quality care when the need arises. In this process, this former theatre has been transformed into a quality part of the arsenal needed in the country's fight against the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Abuja.
And there we had a report from Adefemi Akinsanya on yesterday's inauguration of the THISDAY Dome that has been converted into an isolation centre for patients that are trying to survive the COVID-19 fight. Once again, brilliant private sector initiative that we are seeing here. And it's amazing that an app has also been launched for contact tracing. I think that's also a brilliant initiative that has been added on in partnership as well with 54Gene Mobile Testing Lab. I think that's also brilliant. Current capacity of 200 can be increased to 1,000. This is brilliant, Doctor. Over to you.
Yes, I mean, again, a word of commendation for the various partners that came together this day. CCECC, African Finance Corporation, the Central Bank, Sahara Group, and everybody who contributed in one way or the other. The good news, of course, is that the facility is going to increase the number of bed spaces available in Abuja. And the Minister of the FCT pointed out that, well, although there's already an isolation center that has been commissioned in Idu, with the THISDAY Dome Treatment and Isolation Center, capacity at the federal capital in terms of bed spaces will go up to about 1,000, which is a very good development. But there was a point that was made by Shonobi, the representative of the Sahara Group there yesterday. He said they had approached many businesses, many persons in the private sector who refuse to cooperate or collaborate with them on this project because they said it could affect their businesses. But it was only Prince Nduka Obaigmena, the chairman of the THISDAY Group, who agreed that this was a good idea. So in that regard, I think that particular disclosure should be especially underlined. It's a very good, corporate social responsibility, a demonstration of, commitment to the public cause, to the common good, and also, a demonstration of humanism. Absolutely. Because Shonobi made that point about, things being a donation, a contribution to the advancement of humanity.
Absolutely. And like it was pointed out yesterday, this is really the worst public health emergency that we are facing in this generation. So all hands on deck is what we want to see. Let's take another story before we go on a quick commercial break now. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, has been appointed as the new Chief of Staff to the President, Muhammadu Buhari, replacing Malam Abba Kyari, who died last month of COVID-19. Our sister outfit This Day gathered that Gambari, who was Buhari's foreign minister and also confidence as military head of state in 1984, met with the president around 8 a.m. yesterday at the State House in Abuja. Presidential sources also say that the new Chief of Staff will be unveiled today during the Federal Executive Council meeting. While Gambari has emphasized the need for the restoration of unity and peace through national dialogue as the dominant condition for the development of the country, he has also said that the COVID-19 pandemic, which has put the whole world into crisis, should be an ample opportunity for Nigeria to unite and find solutions to its challenges. Now, we are going to be discussing this further on in our conversation today on the morning show with our guest. But as of now, we will go on a very quick commercial break. And when we are back, the conversations for today continue. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Rotus Odiri is here to give us business update. Over to you, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Basi. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, so we're looking at the pharmaceutical sector today. The Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, founded in 1927, are not very happy with the federal government's decision to bring in the the COVID organics from Madagascar, and their press release emphasizes that point. Their press release says this importation of COVID organics from Madagascar is simply distasteful. And if you look at the summary of their press release, they're essentially saying that, look, Nigeria has 174 universities, 43 federal, 52 states, 79 private, got 20 facilities of pharmacy, 69 federally funded research institutes. Madagascar, on the other hand, they've only got 6 universities. They got just 1 faculty of pharmacy. They got 9 research institutes. Why are we getting any of these items from Madagascar? They said, we have a pharmacopoeia of natural and herbal products. A pharmacopoeia is a registered official list of clinical medicinal drugs which have their effects and their directional use. A number of these companies, pharmaceutical companies in Nigeria that have put these out there, need funding in order to push forward their clinical trials to see if any of these herbs work. And they've said that the government should be funding them and assisting them. And they also suggested that if the government wants to look for where to get funding for these clinical trials, they should look at the CACOVID-19 funds that have, I think it's about 27 billion, if I remember what the central bank governor said yesterday at the unveiling of the THISDAY Sahara Group ICU Center. So we should look inwards, is what the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria is saying, and that, there's no need to be getting these items from Madagascar. And, again, when you think about how many federally funded universities we have and research institutes, it does raise the question as to why we would need to be, getting this assistance from many of these smaller countries.
When Mr. Simon Hamwa, president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, he signed that statement in his capacity as president. He talked about the importation of CVO, COVID organics, from Madagascar. I think we need to clarify that Nigeria has not yet imported. What we're going to pick up from Guinea-Bissau, as directed by the president, is a donation by President Andy Rajoelina of Madagascar. And Nigeria says, or rather the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Nigeria has said that this will be subjected to clinical trial. 2, the point made by Mr. Hamwa about, supporting research and development. Now, that's a point that has also been, made repeatedly by the Minister of Health at the regular briefings of the Presidential Task Force. But it's not enough to talk about it. And it's good that the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria is saying, look, we should go beyond rhetoric and we should, take action. Number 3, it is also worthy to note that, the Nigerian government is not ignoring persons who have made suggestions about getting a herbal cure in Nigeria. About a week ago, the Ministry of Health and NAFDAC had a meeting with about 35 phytomedicinal experts. Now, we don't know the outcome of that yet. Now, 4, Mr. Hamwa talks about Nigeria taking part in the WHO Global Solidarity drug trial, where the truth of the matter also is that the government has said anybody that has suggestions, that has any herbal cure, should come forward. And only yesterday, WHO held a virtual meeting with 70 phytomedicinal practitioners across Africa. So, but the point that he made about research and about encouraging production of drugs in Nigeria, nobody can argue with that. Right. And he makes the point about biodiversity, about Nigeria's rich flora and fauna.
Absolutely. Reuters, thank you for these updates today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we'll see you tomorrow. Right. Now, moving on for some more business updates, some more global from London. Good morning, Michael. How are you today?
Good morning.
Very healthy. Good morning, both of you. Yes, so first of all, do the markets first. Asia Pacific, fairly mixed. There was a bit of a spillover from a lot of negative sentiment in the United States. They're finally realizing that, as you will have heard from one of their health officials, that actually this dash back to work and this push from President Trump to get people back to the workplace may cause a second spike as far as COVID-19 is concerned. So there are worries there. We're going to listen today. You may be hearing this later on, 2 p.m. our time, your time as well. Jay Powell, who's the chairman of the Fed in the United States, will be speaking. He'll be very closely watched because this spectre, I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. There's always a chance of negative interest rates in the United States has been raised by various people in the markets. Looking at the forward indicators, he'll probably have something to say about that. If he does, it'll be very, very closely watched. May I please bring you back to the UK? I know we're a very small group of islands and all the rest of it, but certain things are happening here which may be very indicative as far as Africa and Nigeria are concerned. First of all, GDP fell off a cliff in March and it'll be worse in April. No big surprises about that. But we have a government now that's trying to shift the default thing about we've all been staying at home, just like you have. We've all been self-isolating and so on. The default now is to say to people, we think you should try to go back to work. Now, lots of questions about that. For example, how do you know it's safe to go back to work? What's your legal position with your employer if you say, do you know what, I don't actually think it's going to be safe? How will you know whether it's safe or not? You look at the pictures of central London, I'm sure just like central Abuja and central Lagos, it's crowded. And I mean, people are going back to work. Are they going to be bumping into each other? All these kind of questions are actually pretty big. Number two question, if I may, again, it's about the UK, but it does have international implications. This is the somebody's going to have to pay for all this one day question. We're running towards debt rising to 100% of GDP. Now, it doesn't quite get to Italy's 160% of GDP or Japan's 237% of GDP. But there are big questions now about who's actually going to pay. Are we going to have higher taxes? You bet we are. Are there going to be cuts in public spending? You bet there are. What will the central bank do? Will overseas investors still lend to our central bank? Will they lend to the US central bank? Will they lend to Japan? They may well do if the central banks can spend money. That's going to be a big question for your central bank too, because somebody's going to have to pay for this. Sorry to bring it right back here, but I think these lessons are going to be something that every country, we're all learning from each other right now, aren't we, out of all this?
Certainly, we are.
Well, Wilson, I don't know whether we still have time, but the governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, in a statement said the economy in the UK is likely to contract by about 14%, and that unemployment figures will rise above 9% from the current 4%. But at the end of the day, he's very optimistic. He says the impact of COVID-19 on the UK economy is likely to be relatively small. Do you think there are strong grounds for his optimism?
I think his optimism is doubted by many economists here. What they're actually saying is that, yes, it'll take a hit, but it'll be like a V shape. That's the kind of V-shaped recovery. In other words, a very sharp rise at the beginning of next year. I mean, it depends, doesn't it? You know, you look at the United States, where you've seen a decades increase in unemployment wiped out in a month. Same thing happening here. We may have 5 million unemployed by the end of the year. Will they have jobs to go back to? The Federation of Small Businesses, which now small businesses, as you know, are the absolute heartbeat of an economy, just like they are in Nigeria, just like they are in lots of other African countries as well, where we value entrepreneurs. We like people with small businesses pushing their ideas forward and funding them and so on. And we think that those businesses are going to shrink by about a third. So I think what he's saying is very optimistic, and I don't think many people share that right now.
Certainly does sound rather optimistic. Michael, thank you for today's updates. And now for an update on COVID-19, global updates on COVID-19. Aaron Akerejala is here now to give us just that. Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Good morning, Leila, this morning. Good morning, Doctor. And let's actually start it off from the UK. Let me pick up from where Michael actually stopped. And, of course, the UK actually planning on lifting the lockdown imposed on the citizen. Of course, the Business Secretary, Alok Sharma, has spoken about the fact that if employers can actually do a massive risk assessment and ensure safety, certainly businesses can actually reopen. But if you put that side by side with what is actually going down in the US, whereby there are actually major concerns in terms of what is actually now being projected. That's the fact that University of Washington, of course, the Institute of Health and Metrics and Evaluation, are projecting that by between now and the 4th of August, the death number would have risen to 147,000. And that is up by 10,000 in their last projection they made just last week. And you look at all this and you begin to get scared. Of course, the US also, there's quite a lot of pressure on the government to ease the lockdown and businesses to reopen, restaurants to reopen, other businesses to reopen to at least probably cushion the effect of the unemployment that is actually enveloping the entirety of the US at the moment. So quite a lot of pressure is being put, but this particular report will certainly be a warning signal to anyone who is still insisting that the lockdown should be lifted. Because if we look at the numbers as of this morning, the global number says that 291,981 deaths has been recorded. In the U.S. alone, 82,387 of those deaths are from the U.S. alone. Of course, New York still recording the highest with 27,284. So you look at all this, when you put it together,
you wonder how they're actually going to push forward.
Why people are still pushing forward to ensure that the lockdown is eased.
But this is why Dr. Fauci keeps on saying, at the end of the day, it just looks impossible right now. Like, the idea of opening up the economy in the U.S. looks absolutely impossible. You are nearing 100,000 deaths. You're not that far off.
Well, I mean, the easing of the lockdown, has brought new realities, new, adjustments in many parts of the world. But I guess, this is the push by business owners, and also an attempt to mitigate the effect on the economy. If you look at the UK that you started with, I mean, over 7 million workers, have been sent on unpaid leave, and government has had to, have an unemployment benefit scheme, which runs into the Chancellor of the Exchequer says could run into about 800 billion pounds by the end of the year, and he just extended it till October. It was supposed to end next month. So there is very heavy cost. And you'll find that many of these countries, they are easing the lockdown. But unfortunately, it has implications, as we have seen in Senegal, where there is a spike.
But yeah, Aaron, thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Always a pleasure.